Rashidomics, where you maybe just discovered you can get your next mortgage. Well, you can't actually get a mortgage at Walmart, but you may want a mortgage at Walmart, and you would not be alone. As 33% of people recently interviewed by a poll said they would consider getting a loan from Walmart. You wouldn't probably go buy your real estate from the lumber yard where it doesn't necessarily know if it's going to be built well. A lot of people really want to know that there's some structure, there's some advice, there's some good things, some good thought that goes behind big, huge financial decisions, and the same can really be said of real estate. Will Heaton joins us, founder of HeatonDainard and Interest Funding, an all-encompassing real estate company that really works with development and rehabilitation and has really done over hundreds of transactions over the past 7 years. Will, how are you, my man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you. So would you get a loan at Walmart?
I would not get a loan at Walmart.
Why not?
Well, I've obviously got several loans and realize how much effort and energy goes into the process, and I just don't think I could trust somebody making $11 an hour to process my loan application.
Yeah, the discount on everything it's such a tough thing to do. But one place that discounts really can be good is in your business, but it's not necessarily discounting the service; it's discounting what you're purchasing. And, a lot of people come to you, they work with whether it's a flip on a less expensive property, potentially it's a flip on a higher end property, which are maybe a little bit less common. And because we're kind of going anti-cheap, anti-Walmart today, I want to talk with you a little bit about those high end flips. And, are people out there buying expensive houses, making them nicer and putting them back on the market?
A few people are. I mean, I seem to think that I don't see it quite as often. I know that's a kind of a little niche that we've found to work really well for us because there's a lot less competition in that. There's a lot more people who can buy a $80, $90, $200,000 house, put 30, 40 grand into it, and turn around and sell it for a profit. And we've looked for a little higher margins. I mean, our business is really focused around helping people do those sorts of deals. And, part of it is in an effort for us not to compete directly with our own clients, to continue to provide those properties for them. And we also see the opportunity there for a greater margin with sometimes, close to around the same amount of effort at times. So we, my partner James and I, for our own investments, typically focus on stuff that's, we buy them for $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. We put $200,000 to $300,000 into the repair and sell them for $1 million to $1.2 million.
And so, really, you're talking about some pretty expensive houses.
Yeah, definitely. And they're in our focus for those. I mean, the houses that we see that we're going to require that much rehab are, typically older homes, and they're in neighborhoods in Seattle that are really highly desirable neighborhoods like Laurelhurst, Magnolia, Queen Anne, Mount Baker, Wallingford. They're in-city urban neighborhoods that a lot of people want to live in for obvious reasons.
Sure. And so when you're out there and you're finding these properties, what is the perfect high-end? We call it high-end. Really, it's just more expensive. We're not talking about mansions in Medina and going in and flipping those. We're talking about just houses that are really in extremely desirable areas that maybe haven't had the tender loving care that they need to be brought up to today's standards. Yeah,
definitely. A lot of the homes are, their estate sales, their tax foreclosures, any reason, of a house that maybe hasn't been maintained over the last, 50, 75 years. Mm-hmm. And it's, those homes were built, on average 100 years ago when things like, a bathroom on every floor, master bathrooms didn't exist. The basements are all unfinished. And there's just a lot of opportunity for us to add value in those homes by modernizing the floor plans and taking advantage of all the potential square footage within the existing envelope typically.
Will Heaton joins us, founder with HeatonDainard. Will, so let's talk a little about what does that house look like? So you said there's some bathroom issues, or not maybe issues, but what else would that perfect home that could be brought up to, I guess I call it today's standards. If you're looking at $1 million house, it's today's luxury standards, really. What are some of these houses missing? You talked about a basement, you talked about bathrooms. Is there other pieces of that it makes for a good target on something like this, an investment like this?
Yeah, the functionality of a kitchen, in the 1900s was really basic. right? And so a lot of times what we end up doing is, the kitchen may double or triple in size. We add a master bathroom upstairs. We try to bring a laundry room out of a basement where it's dark and cold, and then we take that finished, the basement, and turn it into finished livable square footage. Sometimes we can find square footage in attics, and just really maximize the amount of living space that an existing home has, as well. Really improve the efficiency of the energy in the home, because these homes were built with single pane windows, 2x4 walls that have minimal insulation, if any at all. And there's a lot of things we can do in that arena.
So what is then, you said is there less competition? Is that why people go out and do this? You talked about not everybody can afford one of these bigger houses before.
Yeah, and they don't want to. There's a lot more
seem perceived risk, right? Like, well, now I'm putting more money out there, but maybe in reality, well, you're not. You are, but the risk is even lower because you're in such a desirable neighborhood where there's more, more demand.
That's really kind of how we look at it. We look where we're not going to be in Seattle primarily. You're not going to be competing with a plat of 300 or 400 homes that's going to go in down the street from D.R. Horton or any of these big builders. I mean, there's no more land. And so we find that being in a densely populated, desirable neighborhood, if there is an adjustment in the market, our risk is going to be reduced by the fact that there's not a whole bunch of homes that are going to come in and destroy our value.
And right now, there's like no homes at all with the inventory out there.
Exactly. It's very limited.
Is there big concerns you have? Are there negatives, on that pros and cons list that people should think about?
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to go out and start, doing a little more of an involved flip like this, I mean, with the older homes, we run into, hazardous materials, lead paint, asbestos, and that's got to be abated by the proper professionals. And that's, these are just things that nobody ever taught us how to do this. These are all things we learned the hard way. We met the L&I inspectors and have had the fines and go, oh, wow, that's not the right way to do that. And, also you've got to be preparing yourself for a little longer project and, get the proper permits and, structural engineering and have the house, done to where it's going to pass a home inspection.
Go ahead. Sorry.
We really take the house completely down to the studs and a lot of times completely rip the siding off and the wiring, the plumbing, the heating system, basically every aspect of the home is rebuilt from the foundation and the framing up.
So in some ways, getting into one of these, it could be more work than maybe meets the eye from the outside. I always think of these shows like, I don't know, Homes and Inspection on Homes, whatever, on HGTV. And, you start thinking about what they find or these do-it-yourself shows. And it's like, oh, my goodness, wow, this is way bigger project than we anticipated. It sounds like kind of what you're getting into sometimes is, okay, I see it, but what's behind that wall? What's behind door number one?
Yeah, and we definitely run into that a lot with these homes built in the early 1900s because, they've passed through hands several times over the years, a lot of the times, and they've done an addition and then they've ripped it off, or they've, opened up a room and not, properly supported a ceiling. There is a lot of wiring that could be tied into bad wiring. There's just you don't know unless you open up these walls what you can get yourself into. We find a lot of rot. We find cracked foundations, leaky basements that have been, undermining the foundation for years. There's just a lot of things that we come into and that, from us doing this over and over and over again, we now have the eye to look for and, hopefully, mitigate those risks by buying the property at the right price.
Will Heaton joins us from HeatonDainard discussing the potential for flipping high-end homes and especially in desirable areas. Will, so how does somebody make sure they don't find a house that has way more work than maybe, the value would justify?
You just got to get it at the right price and prepare for it. I mean, when we look at most of these homes, we plan for doing everything. When we're buying a house that's, built around the early 1900s, very rarely are we ever able to really keep any of the wiring, plumbing, the lath and plaster all comes out because once you touch that wall, the stuff just kind of crumbles apart. So, I would just say prepare for doing absolutely everything to the home. And if you don't have to do something, well, that's, money in your pocket.
So, I mean, you talked about, $200,000 or $300,000 in renovation.
Yep. And that includes, like in the nicer neighborhoods, we are, typically putting, a very, a really nice 5-piece master bath. We put in a lot higher end appliance package. We go with a lot, nicer millwork package, and just really make the home fit the neighborhood and be a desirable property.
What now? I guess you talked about making the interior of the home pure nicer. What about the difference between the efficiency of a home from 1900s or early 1900s versus now? I mean, there must be a ton of different efficiency standards that you try to meet.
Yeah, I mean, the basic requirement for, especially in the city of Seattle, is that you just get the most you can out of the existing framing and the existing ability of the home. And we're actually, currently taking that a little further and diving into some built green remodeling, where the existing homes are framed with a 2x4 wall. We're actually furring those out, and any new walls we put in, we're building them to a 2x6 wall.
You're furring them out.
Yes.
What does that mean?
We are increasing the depth of the wall cavity.
Like putting fur on the outside in order to be the insulation.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. No. So yeah, we increase the depth of the wall cavity, and so that allows us to fit more insulation in the wall.
Sure.
And the type of insulation we use, we actually line the walls with this mesh, and then they blow the insulation in, which gives you a much higher R value, which increases the.
And this is called furring?
Yeah, this is furring. It's a furry little house.
I want to know who came up with, you go through this whole process. It's like, okay, we're going to call this furring.
Yeah, I don't know. I got in the business of real estate investing and never knew I'd have to know so much about construction. It's really not my background, but I've learned a lot. We always hire a general contractor, and they're kind of the pros. And
sure.
That's where I kind of steal all these little.
You're like,
I heard that. You figured it out.
The contractors figured it out.
Yeah.
Well, we just have about a minute left, but a lot of people want to get into property flipping and really need good resources. And you guys do a lot of seminars. Talk us a little about the seminars and how people can get registered. Yeah,
you can actually just call our office and ask for Meredith, or email Meredith at HeatonDainard.com. That's MEREDITH at HeatonDainard.com. And we hold the classes there on Wednesday evenings at about 6:30 at our office. And we just really go over how our company works and how we provide our services and can get people set up to either buy fix and flips, or which we find really a better play right now is the long-term rental properties.
And what's the phone number?
That's 425-881-5131.
Got it. And then of course you can always find them on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Rashidomics. And thanks for coming, man. Really appreciate it. And,
thank you.
It is interesting information, especially when you think about the differences between some of these quick flips that you hear about that are just you put $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 in versus this $250,000 remodel that can really but can still pan out really, really well. Will Heaton, thanks so much for joining us. We do have to go to a break. When we come back, I'm sure you've heard of it if you've turned on the TV at any point in time in the last month or so. There's a cliff, and it's fiscal, and it's coming. We're going to talk to you a little bit about the tax things you need to know about that may be happening over the course of the next, 3 weeks away? Man, 3 weeks away. We'll be right back.